Hey class, Mr. Hanji here. For today's lesson, we're going to be taking a look at section 19.3, which is going to deal with surface area of pyramids and cones. Now, for today's lesson, we have one learning goal, and our learning goal for today is that you will be able to find the surface area of a pyramid and a cone. So we're going to jump back into looking at pyramids and cones. Remember, a pyramid is going to have one base, and then its sides are made up of triangles that all meet at a point called the vertex. So we're going to go through and talk about surface area and lateral area of pyramids, and then we're also going to take a look at cones. Now, for a pyramid, when we talk about this idea of lateral and surface area, okay, lateral area of a pyramid is going to be the triangular sides. Okay, so when we figure out lateral area of our pyramids, we're going to figure out the area of the triangular sides. Surface area is going to take the lateral area, so the area of the sides, plus the area of the base. So we'll talk about those formulas here in a second, but just know lateral area is the sides, surface area is the sides, plus the base. And that goes for a rectangular pyramid or a triangular pyramid, where the base is a triangle and then the sides are a triangle as well. So for a triangular pyramid, we're going to find the area of the three sides for the lateral, and then for surface area, we'll add that plus the base. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the lateral and surface area formulas for pyramids. All right, the lateral area of a regular pyramid with perimeter P and slant height L is L equals 1/2 P times L. So this lateral area formula is going to be what we use to figure out the lateral area of a pyramid, where it's 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. So that cursive lowercase l is the slant height. Now, slant height, as demonstrated here in this diagram, is not going to be the height up and down straight through the middle, yet slant height is the length up along the edge of your pyramid. So slant height, if we're thinking our pyramid, the slant height goes up along the edge, and that's what we're going to be looking for. When we talk about L, we want to know the length along the edge. So, lateral area, 1/2 times the perimeter of the base, so you're going to have to add all the sides of your base for the perimeter around it, times the slant height. Now, for surface area of a pyramid with lateral area L and base area B, is the surface area equals the lateral area plus the base area. So once you figure out the lateral area, you then need to figure out the area of the base, and then to figure out your surface area, you add those together. So if we're thinking a rectangular base, it's length times width. If we're thinking a triangular base, it's 1/2 base times height. Now, with prisms, we had to do plus 2b. For pyramids, we're only doing plus b because there's only one base. So figure out your lateral area, then we can figure out the area of the base and add those two numbers together to give us the surface area. So this is going to be kind of our go-to for surface area, or we could combine it all at once and say 1/2 PL plus B. But it's the lateral area plus the area of the base. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and jump into example 1 today, where we're going to go through and figure out the lateral and surface area of some pyramids. All right, example 1 is going to have us do just that, find the lateral and surface area of the following pyramids. And I'm going to slide this back down for a second. So remember that lateral area is 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. Then surface area is equal to the lateral area plus the area of the base. All right, so we're going to start with lateral area for example 1. All right, so lateral area is 1/2 times perimeter of the base times the slant height. So we have a rectangular pyramid. Actually, this is a square pyramid. So if this is 5 inches here, that means that this is 5 inches as well. So it doesn't matter whether we classify it as a rectangle or a square. We know that opposite sides are congruent. So that means this is 5 and this is 5. So to figure out the perimeter, we're going to go through and add all 4 sides up. So it's 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, which gives us a perimeter of 20. So we know our perimeter to be 20. And then this one, thankfully, they tell us our slant height. Okay, you're going to see it as a dotted line that's not going straight up and down like we see here with the 12, where that goes right down the middle. Yeah, this goes right down the edge of one of the faces. So that is going to be our slant height, which is 9. So for lateral area, I have my P value and my L value. So we can go through and plug everything in. So lateral area is equal to 1/2 times 20 times 9. And that gives us a lateral area of, we do 20 times 9 times 1/2. We get 90. So 90 inches squared is the lateral area of this rectangular pyramid. All right, so now that we have lateral area, the next thing we need to figure out is surface area. And surface area is going to be the lateral area plus the area of the base. Now, we have a rectangular pyramid. So that means we need to figure out the area of this rectangular base, that purple shaded spot. So we need to figure out the area of this rectangle. Remember, area of a rectangle is length times width. So the length is 5, the width is 5. So this is going to be 5 times 5, which gives us 25. So that's going to tell us our B value. So for surface area, we know the lateral area to be 90, and for our B value, the area of the base, we know it to be 25. So now that I know both of these things, we can plug that into our formula. So surface area equals 90 plus 25. And that is going to tell us our surface area is 115 inches squared. And that is our answer for example 1A for the lateral area and the surface area of our rectangular pyramid. All right, so that is going to be our focus for today in how you go through and solve these problems. So, lateral area is 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. Perimeter of the base is adding all the sides up of the base, and then the slant height is going to be the length along the face of the pyramid. Then, once you have multiplied 1/2 times perimeter base times the slant height, that tells you the lateral area. Then to figure out surface area, you're going to take that lateral area and add it with the area of the base. So figure out the area of the base, add that with your lateral area, and that is your answer for surface area. So, if we take a look at example 1, part B, so they give us another rectangular pyramid, and for this one thing to note, if you notice, they don't tell us our slant height, yet they show us here with L that we do not know our slant height, so we need to figure out what our slant height is. So, whenever you are not told your slant height, okay, we have to go through and do a few things. Number one, we need to use the Pythagorean theorem because we have a right triangle here, okay, where this side is 12, and then to figure out this side, if we kind of think about it as the radius, okay, it's going from the center of this square to the edge, so we're going to take half of this side length, which is 5. So then this side is 5, and then we need to figure out the slant height, L. Now, the slant height, if you're ever trying to figure out the slant height, is the hypotenuse in the Pythagorean theorem. So if we're going to go through and figure out the slant height, it's 5 squared plus 12 squared equals L squared. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Again, just to kind of point out the numbers and where I got them from. 12 comes from the fact that they tell me the height of the pyramid is 12. The 5 is going to come from the fact of we're taking half of this side length. So whenever you're trying to figure out this length, take half of whatever your side length is, which in this case is 5. And then we want to figure out the slant height, which is our hypotenuse. So that's why L is on the right side. So if we go through and solve the Pythagorean theorem, so 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144. If we add those together, we get 169 equals L squared. And if we take the square root of 169, we figure out our slant height to be 13. So I know our L value to be 13. Now the other thing we need to know, now that we know our slant height, if we're thinking lateral area, it's 1/2 times the primitive base times the slant height. So we know our slant height, our L value, but we need to know the perimeter of our base. So we need to figure out our p-value. Because these sides are 10, that means these sides are 10 as well. So it's 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. So when you add 10 together 4 times, we get a perimeter of 40. So we know our L value and our P value, so we're going to plug both of them into our lateral area formula. So lateral area is 1/2 times 40 times 13. So we're going to use our calculator. So 40 times 13 times 1/2 gives us 260 meters squared for our lateral area. Alright, so we now know our lateral area. So the next thing we need to figure out is our surface area. Surface area, remember, is going to be the lateral area plus the area of the base. Now, we need to figure out the area of the base before we kind of proceed on. Again, we have a rectangular base. Okay, so we need to figure out the area of this rectangle for this pyramid. So because our length is 10 and our width is 10, 10 times 10 is going to give us 100. So that is the area of the base. So now that I know the area of the base, we know our lateral area. We can plug both of those in to figure out our surface area. So the lateral area is 260, the area of the base is 100. So if we do 260 plus 100, we get 360 for our surface area. So the surface area is 360 meters squared. So that is the area of the 4 triangular sides and the rectangular base of this pyramid. All right, so that is how you go through and figure out lateral and surface area. Remember, lateral area is 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height of the pyramid. Sometimes they will tell you the slant height, and then sometimes you have to go through and use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out your slant height. Once you have your lateral area, to find surface area, it's lateral area plus the area of the base. So we already know lateral area, so you just have to figure out the area of the base, and then you add those two numbers together to give you your surface area. All right, so that is a couple examples on lateral and surface area of pyramids. Before we kind of move on to cones, I just want to talk about a few things with C and D. Now, for C is very similar to what we did for part B, where they do not tell us the slant height. Okay, and they indicate that by telling us L for the slant height. So we need to figure out what the slant height is before you can go through and figure out your lateral and surface area. Now, they tell us that the height of the pyramid is 8. We need to know the measure of this segment first. So, this side length is 6, so half of 6 is 3. So that means that this radius here is 3, and then this side length is 6. So to figure out the slant height, that L, you're going to take 3 squared plus 8 squared equals L squared. So you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out your slant height, which is going to give us approximately 8.54 for our slant height. Now, from here, I'm going to leave the rest of part C for you to run through and do on your own, if you would like, to see if that you're on the right track or see if you understand this correctly. Remember that lateral area is 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. Okay, I've told you the slant height is 8.54. You need to figure out the perimeter of the base, so add up all 4 sides of the base and then plug that into your formulas. Now, if you want to check to see if you have the right numbers and you are calculating correctly, you should get a lateral area of 102.5. Now, that is what you should get for lateral area when you figure out your perimeter of the base and you plug it into the 1/2 P times L. For surface area, remember it's the lateral area plus the area of the base. Okay, I have told you what you should get for your lateral area, which is 102.5. So you already know your LA. So you had to figure out the area of the base. You have a rectangular base. So you had to figure out the area of this rectangle. All right, so you have to figure out the area of that rectangle to tell you what B is. When you get that, add it together with your lateral area. And if you want to check to see if your calculations are correct, you should get a surface area of 138.5. Okay, so I will leave the ins and outs of that calculation for you. If you want to make sure that you're on the right track, know how to calculate both your perimeter and your lateral area overall, and then figure out your area of the base, and then your surface area. Alright, so before we move on to cones, let's take a look at D real quick. So we have a triangular pyramid, and they tell us our slant height is 6. So I'm going to go ahead and indicate that we know L to be 6. We don't have to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is awesome. Now, the other thing we need to know is the perimeter of the base. Now, it doesn't say in this description here, but all 3 sides are going to be the same measure. So if I know one side is 4, that means I know all 3 sides are 4. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 is going to give us 12. So to figure out our lateral area, it's 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. So that's going to be 1/2 times 12 times 6. So if we do 12 times 6 times 1/2, we get 36 centimeters squared for our lateral area. Next, for surface area, it's the lateral area plus the area of the base. But we know our lateral area to be 36, and then figuring out the area of that triangular base is kind of a not so fun time. So I'm actually going to tell you the area of the base is 4 times the square root of 3. So that means we know this to be our B value. So we know our lateral area, we know the perimeter, or not the perimeter of the base, sorry, but we know our lateral area and the base area, so we can plug both of those in. So it's 36 plus 4 times the square root of 3. I'm going to calculate this first, then add 36. So it's 4 times the square root of 3 plus 36 gives us a surface area of 42.93. Centimeters squared, and that is our surface area. So in this one, I told you guys your base area because, again, figuring out the area of this triangle is not the greatest. One thing to note, though, when we talk about area of a triangle, it is 1/2 base times height. So we've run through numerous times on how to figure out the area of a rectangle. Okay, area of a rectangle is length times width. Area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Okay, I just happen to tell you your base area. So with that said, that is how you find lateral and surface area. Figure out your lateral area first, where it's 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. So you're going to multiply those 3 numbers together to tell you your lateral area. Then surface area is going to be your lateral area plus the area of the base. So figure out the area of the base, whether you're going to do length times width or 1/2 base times height. And then you're going to add that number with what you got for lateral area to tell you surface area. All right, so that is lateral and surface area of a pyramid. So the next thing that we want to take a look at is cones. So we're going to talk about lateral and surface area of a cone, and then we'll get into practicing figuring out lateral and surface area of cones. Now, cones, when we are talking about lateral and surface area. So, lateral area is going to be the rounded parts of our cone, and then surface area is going to be that lateral area plus the area of the base. So, when we go through and figure out lateral area of our cone, okay, that's this rounded sides. Surface area is this rounded side plus the area of the base. So, to figure that out for our problems today, for lateral area, we're going to use this pi r L. So that means pi times the radius of our cone times the slant height of the cone. So this time we need to know the slant height, whereas volume we just needed to know the height. So we're going to have to go through and make sure we know the slant height and the radius of every cone. So we need to know radius and the slant height to figure out our lateral area. Now, once you know your lateral area, we can go through and figure out our surface area. Now, surface area is the lateral area plus the area of the base. So that's the area of this circle. We could also write it as pi RL plus pi r squared. Now, I like to kind of adjust this just a touch. Let's call this surface area equals the lateral area plus pi r squared. Because we have to figure out the lateral area for every problem, which is that pi RL. So that's what that part is here. So I'm just going to notate it as lateral area because we're going to figure this out first. Then we just had to figure out the area of the base, which is pi r squared. So these are going to be our two lifeline formulas for example 2 as we figure out lateral and surface area of cones. And for example 2, they want us to leave the answers in terms of pi and round to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this on up so we can just focus on our example 2 next. All right, so lateral area, just as a reminder, is pi RL. So we need to figure out the radius and the slant height for every cone. Then once you have your lateral area, we can figure out our surface area, which is lateral area plus pi r squared. So when we have our lateral area, we figured that out. We're going to add that with pi r squared. So you only need to know two things, your radius and your slant height. All right, so if we look at example 2, part A, so we need to go through and figure out the lateral and surface area of this cone. Now, lateral area is pi RL. Based off the diagram, I know our radius to be 6, and our slant height, instead of the height, our slant height here is L. So we do not know our slant height, but we have a right triangle, and we need to find a missing side length. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. Now, for the Pythagorean theorem for this one, okay, the slant height, like I said, is considered your hypotenuse. It's the side opposite the right angle. So it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So it's 6 squared plus 8 squared equals L squared. So whenever you are trying to figure out a side length or radius from your cone, know that the height of the cone and the radius of the cone are going to be your A and B values, and your slant height is always going to be your hypotenuse, your C value. So if we go through and calculate our slant height, 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64. If we add 36 and 64, we get 100. And if we take the square root of 100, we get 10. So we now know our slant height to be 10. So we know our radius, we know our slant height, so we know our R and our L value, which is the two things we need to know for our lateral area. So lateral area is pi times the radius, which is 6, times the slant height, which is 10. We go through real quick. 6 times 10 is going to give us 60. So it's going to be 60 pi. So that's our lateral area in terms of pi. Then we want to go through and calculate to the nearest tenth. So we're going to do 60 times pi, and we get 188.5. So that is our lateral area in terms of pi, and then by multiplying pi n. Alright, so we have our lateral area. So our surface area is the lateral area plus pi r squared. That's the area of the base, this circular base. Now, we know our lateral area to be 60 pi. And we know our radius for the pi r squared is 6. So this is going to be pi 6 squared. So if we do 6 to the power of 2, we get 36. So this becomes 60 pi plus 36 pi. So if we do 60 plus 36, we get 96 pi for our surface area. And then if we multiply pi to 96, we end up with 301.6. And that is our surface area in terms of pi and rounding to the nearest tenth. So that is how you go through and figure out your lateral and surface area of cones. Your lateral area is pi RL, so pi times the radius times the slant height. Your surface area is your lateral area plus pi r squared, because pi r squared is the area of our circular base. Now, understand, not every problem are they going to tell you your radius and your slant height. If they do not tell you one of those, you need to use the Pythagorean theorem, where your radius and the height of the cone are your a and b values, and your slant height is your c value, for a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Alright, so with that said, it's really just kind of more examples from there on. If we take a look real quick at B, I do want to talk about B, mostly because this time they provide us our slant height as 25, but they do not tell us our radius. So, unlike A, where they told us our radius, but they didn't tell us our slant height, this time they tell us our slant height, but not our radius. Now, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem for the radius, just like we did for the slant height. So, that's what we're going to figure out first, is our r value. So if we think a squared plus b squared equals c squared of the Pythagorean theorem, our a value is r, our b value is 24, and our c value is going to be 25. So this is r squared plus 24 squared equals 25 squared. If we go through and square everything, we get r squared plus 576 equals 625. You have to subtract the 576 to the 625, which is going to give us r squared equals 49. And if we take the square root of 49, we get 7. So I now know r to be 7. So my radius is 7. And then our slant height is 25. So that's our L value. So I now know the two things that I need to know about our cone to figure out our lateral and surface area. So for every problem that you are dealing with the lateral and surface area of a cone, you just need to know your slant height and your radius. You know those two things, you can figure out your lateral and surface area. So, lateral area is pi r L. We know our radius to be 7 and our slant height to be 25. So this is going to be pi times 7 times 25. If we do 7 times 25, we get 175. So 175 pi is our lateral area in terms of pi. And then if we round to the nearest tenth, if we multiply pi in, we get 549.8. And that is the lateral area of this cone. So that's going to be the rounded edge or the rounded side. Now we have to figure out surface area. And surface area is the lateral area plus pi r squared. Now we know our lateral area to be 175 pi. And then it's going to be plus pi r squared. Well, we know our radius to be 7, so we're going to plug that in for r. So it's pi 7 squared. If we do 7 to the power of 2, we get 49, so this becomes 49 pi. So it's 175 pi plus 49 pi. So if we add those together, 49 plus 175, we get 224 pi. And then to round to the nearest tenth, we're going to multiply pi in. And we get 703.7. And that tells us our lateral and surface area of this cone. So, to sum up for lateral and surface area of cones, you need to figure out your radius of your cone and the slant height of your cone. Once you know that R and L value, your lateral area is pi times your radius times your slant height. Your surface area is the lateral area plus pi r squared. So you only need to know those two things, radius and slant height. If they tell you the radius and slant height of your cone, then you can go through and calculate your lateral and surface area. Okay, so pi r L is for your lateral area, surface area is your lateral area plus pi r squared. So that is how you figure out lateral and surface area for every cone. Again, the main thing that you need to be aware of and understand is not every problem will they tell you your radius and your slant height. Okay, they will likely either tell you the slant height and the height, like they did in B. So you have to figure out your radius using the Pythagorean theorem, or they will tell you the radius and the height, but not the slant height. So you have to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out your slant height. So in case they do not tell you your radius or slant height, you need to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out your radius or slant height, whichever one is missing. Then you can go through and plug everything into pi RL, or lateral area plus pi r squared. Now, that's what you do for every problem with a cone. So we talked about A and B. I'm not going to run through C and D for matter of time, but just one thing to point out. For C, they tell us the height of the cone is 4, and the diameter of the cone is 6. So that means the radius is 3 for this cone. And then to figure out the slant height, you want to use the Pythagorean theorem. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals L squared. So that's going to tell you your slant height, which in this case would be 5. Then you can go through and plug everything in for your lateral area, which is pi r L, and then your surface area, which is the lateral area, plus pi r squared. We know our radius to be 3. We know the slant height to be 5 using the Pythagorean theorem. We know r and L. That will tell us our lateral area. And we know our radius for pi r squared. Now, same thing for D. So they tell us the height of the cone is 2, and the slant height is 2.5. So we know the slant height to be 2.5. So you have to figure out the radius. So to figure out the radius, it's r squared plus 2 squared equals 2.5 squared. And that's going to give us a radius of 1.5. So they told us the slant height. We used the Pythagorean theorem to figure out the radius. I now have my r and L for the lateral area. So we can calculate the lateral area and then plug our radius in for pi r squared. So this is your go-to and your lifeline for cones. For pyramids, it's 1/2 times the perimeter of the base times the slant height for the lateral area. Then surface area is the lateral area plus the area of the base. So with that said, I have given you a multitude of examples on how to figure out lateral and surface area of pyramids and cones. We talked about 3 full examples on pyramids and then 2 full examples on cones. And then I talked about how you can figure out your slant height and how you can figure out your radius for cones and pyramids, so that way you can plug in that information for those problems. So with that said, that is it for today's lesson on section 19.3 on surface area of pyramids and cones. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this helps you feel comfortable about the content for today. As always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know next time you see me or send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to help however I can. So, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate that. I hope you have a great day. Good luck on your homework. Be sure to reference back to the video or the completed notes for some examples as you work on your homework. And always use that homework or that example tab on the homework. So, good luck. Have a great day, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.